Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey there, hi there, oh there, this is Ralph Hayes Jr., RH Jr., Reality Check, coming to you live over the internet through a series of tubes known as the boob tube we call YouTube, bringing you yet another contribution of litter to the information highway, another broadcast of that deplorable condition known as spleen squeezins. What the heck is this? I don't know! Nope. That's not it either. What is it? Where is it? Where has it gone? Where has my theme music gone? Here it is. Oh yeah. Rockin' to the grooves. Hip hip dip hop hop hip hip hop hip 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 beef for five minutes flip 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 flu cheap bomb bomb flip bomb what hey beep ho but infinite herb herb flap. And that's another day. It's another Wednesday evening. Crap. I still haven't taken a bag of trash out yet. Not even one bag. I consider it a grand achievement when I get one bag of trash out at a time. This is why I have boxes of crap all over the place and bags of trash everywhere. I got another ad from those Bulldog Company people who do trash hauling. I paid them like a couple $100 last year to come in and just haul out all my trash. They did a real good job. They even picked up a broom and swept the floor a little bit after they were done. I'm like, oh, how nice. And I'm like, worth every penny. Except for the lingering shame. But what can you do? I may go ahead and hire them again. Because they got the truck, they got the dump, they got the junkyard, they got they got the power. Okay, awesome people. Oh, it's been a week of up and down. Oh, I actually managed to do something today. I updated the fanfiction Coyote. There is a new chapter up in case you haven't read it yet. It's so special. This is, for those of you who don't know, Coyote is a fan fiction of My Hero Academia, where the protagonist, a little fellow by the name of Midoriya, Izuku Midoriya, becomes a superhero. But in my version, in the original version, he basically spends his childhood alone, with no friends. And the only one he calls a friend is actually a bully who torments him for not having a quirk. The Japanese are screwed up. And in this version, he gets a friend, an American a little 5-year-old kid from America who becomes his best bud and blood brother. And anyway. Oh, well, read the story. That's all I'm telling you. The latest chapter is the sports festival episode. First portion of it. Okay. So that's, I suppose, good news. Actually, I managed to finish up a commission for a fellow. Sent it off. I got a big stack of commissions. Good news. I've got a big stack of commissions. Got a lot of money. And I'm like, oh no, I've got a big stack of commissions. That too. That mixed feeling you get when you own a company and see 10,000 people pouring through the front door of your store. Okay, but big boost in my money and my morale. Yes, and also in my dietary intake. Bought my grocery, but did my monthly grocery thing again today. It's interesting due to the since the quarantine. I have been calling them to bring me stuff. More than ever. Let's see, I've called them 2 or 3 times this month to bring stuff to me. In my case, toiletries. What will they bring me? Stuff I use for bandages for my legs. Household clean, bleach, laundry detergent, bar soap. I'd gotten used to the idea. Ages ago, I bought this like 9-pack of bars of soap, and I'd gotten used to the idea. Oh, I'm okay. I've got a pack of bar of soap, up in the cabinet, And then one day I went into the bathroom, to hoist my butt into the shower and hose myself down, and I realized, I was down to like, the slivers you get. And I'm like, Fortunately, I had some body wash left over from my last trip to the doctor's office in the hospital, and so I got by on that until they could bring me some bar soap. Aren't you glad you used Dial? Actually, I prefer Ivory. I figure if I'm going to buy a bar of soap, it might as well be the one that's advertised as being just soap. No perfumes, no additives, B99.44. But and I've noticed that Ivory soap is one of the few soaps that doesn't make their bars of soap in strange shapes to make them try and make them look larger than they actually are. I wouldn't mind having some antibiotic Ivory if do they make that? I don't know. But I've got Dial soap, and I opened up a first bar of soap, and I'm like, why does it have this huge dip in the middle? I mean, it's a dirty little trick that companies do to make their product look larger. They make it skinny in the middle. And you've seen this. You've noticed that the packages stay the same size, but the serving portions and weight of the product go down. Shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. If you're going to do that, shrink the size of the package, then shrink the price of the product. You're trying to save money. So are we. Don't waste money on. Don't try and say, well, we're just trying to save money, and then you're wasting all this money on surplus packaging. Trim it down and maybe cut a few pennies off the price at our end. That way, everybody's not as pissed off. Just a thought, corporate America. On the downside, I've got my stories on 3 different forums. Sufficient Velocity over here. Space Battles over there. They're 2 feuding. From what I understand, they used to be one forum, and then they split up because of issues. And then over here, Archive of Our Own. And every last one of all 3 of them bullshit about how they're paragons of freedom of speech, because they have fan fiction on them. And they, you got the freak on the leash hangout, even, they'll put up fan fiction, even the weird and freaky stuff. So that makes them paragons of freedom of speech, because they tolerate your weird your weird Sonic the Hedgehog asphyxiation porn fetish, But when it comes to talking about, controversial subjects, in other words, talking about subjects they don't want you to talk about. Suddenly it's 1984 all in here. So, in case you haven't guessed, yes, my account got suspended on one of them. Thus far, Space Battles hasn't given me any flack, but Sufficient Velocity, oh, this was a fun one. Okay, I've already told you the story about being banned on, or suspended rather, on Archive of Our Own. Even though they broke the rules. It seems that I was false. It was they've got a 3-strike system, and one of the strikes turned out to be bogus. First of all, and the first strike had supposedly been removed, but they kept it anyway. And the second two were basically because I made a pussy cry. Some guy came on my phone. Some guy came in there and started making commentary on my stories, trolling. I argued with him for a while, and then he ran off crying to mommy about how I wasn't respecting his special lifestyle or whatever it was. I don't even know what his deal was anymore. It's always a lifestyle thing. No matter what it is they're doing, it's a lifestyle. Sticking Jell-O down your pants. The Jell-O-philia lifestyle. It's never a habit. It's never a hobby. It's never a fetish. It's never a thing you do. It's your identity. It's your lifestyle. And that gives you free reign to verbally and physically abuse anybody who criticizes you. Or it. Anyway. And they banned me, and then I came back and I said, wait a minute. They listed off the 3 strikes, and one of them was that I had committed plagiarism. And I came back and said, wait a minute. I said, what are you talking about? And they admitted, and they went back and checked. Oh, yeah, you were accused of plagiarism, but then you provided proof that the original author had given you permission. So that should have been deleted. But we're going to ban you anyway. You see, that's what special snowflakes call fairness. You see, if you aren't politically correct, you don't deserve the same rights they do. Well, anyway, same song, different story. Same song, different stanza, rather. Now, you've heard about the comic book, The New Warriors. And they got a new guy on board who's, it's basically the New Warriors 2020. And I'm not kidding you, it's a dumpster fire. I mean, it is being panned by everyone. It is awful. How much do you need to read to know this? The titles. Okay, let's start off with this. The idea is that the way he's pronounced. What is this guy's name? Let me. What is this guy's name? I keep forgetting it. It's so ridiculous. New Warriors 2020 author. He is an Emmy-nominated writer. Doesn't mean he's any good at writing comic books. You got people that write. You got people that write things like elongated poetry that have Emmy nominations. Emmy nominated. His name's Daniel Kibblesmith. I'm not making that name up. He worked on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Daniel Kibblesmith. And they showed him on picture. Just pathetic looking. I mean, like, dude, at least try. And they interviewed him, and he said, back when I was a kid, they came out with the original New Warriors. He had a voice. I'm not making the voice up, okay? I'm not even coming close to this voice. He looked like an ostrich with a receding hairline.
Yeah, and I saw the comics on the shelf, and I saw the original New Warriors, and I can't, as a kid, I kept thinking these characters are too cool for me.
Who looks at a comic book and goes, these guys are too cool for me? And so basically what he's written is there are these 5 kids. Okay, let me just list off the names these kids have taken as superheroes, okay? You have Snowflake, Safe Space, Screen Time, Trailblazer, and B Negative. Okay? Snowflake is a self-identified gender-neutral female. And I'm a fucking attack helicopter. Pardon my language, but I've just reached my limit. You gotta drop the F-bomb on this one. You need to drop a nuke on this one. She's a freaking, she dresses androgynously, and her power is that she makes ice, snowflake-shaped ice shurikens. That's like one step above, picks up things and throws them. Her brother, Safe Space, can generate force fields, but only if they're protecting somebody else. Because safe spaces were all about protecting other people, weren't they? No, they were about, complete milksops, having to crawl off, hide, and cry when the real world made them upset. B Negative, he's a vampire. He looks like he's been described as he looks like a teenage Hordak. I had to look the guy up. I never watched She-Ra. He does, though. It's really sad. He looks like a vampire glam rocker, but he's supposed to be goth. And he likes listening to the Smashing Pumpkins and other bands like that. I'm not picking his tagline, "The world is a vampire, and so am I." And then there's Trailblazer. She's Native American. She's fat, and I mean she's so fat she's shaped like the letter A. Do you understand what I'm saying? And she has a magic bag she got from one of the cosmic space gods of the Marvel Comics universe. And it can, she can reach into it and pull out whatever she needs. That's right. She's a cross between Dora the Explorer and a heifer. Place your bets on how long she's, before, in how many pages into the issue she declared her fat acceptance pride or something. Anyway, and the writing apparently is even more excruciating than the premise. Well, anyway, I looked at this, I mean, this was being panned by everybody. The left, the right, the center, the up, the down, everybody. It's awful. And people are saying, this was the last gasp of the comic industry. Or more like the wet gurgle. As it finally goes under. And it's apparently excruciating writing. And, the one called Screen Time, his grandfather invented this internet gas, which he inhaled, and now he can, he's perpetually connected to the internet through his brain. And it's just as pathetic as it sounds. And I looked at this and I went, "Oh, this is terrible." And I was not trying to kick sand with any of the special, more important than you groups. But I put out, everybody was, so I figured I started a column, and I thought about it. And I thought, there's no such thing as I've heard the saying. You ever heard the saying? There's no such thing as a bad idea, just bad execution. When it comes to creativity, anyway. But I thought, okay, here, let's start a subject. Okay, I called it "Making Silk Purse Out of a Sow's Ear." And I started, I described the book and talked about it. And I said, okay, here's my idea. Okay, what I'm going to do, why don't we do a forum where we do a thread here where everybody gives their idea on how they would make this comic better. And I listed off my idea. My idea, first of all, the premise was, I took the premise and flipped it a little bit. I said, this guy has written a comic book that is all about these teenagers that are all a bunch of social justice special snowflakes. They're all, horribly painful stereotypes of millennials. Because let's face it, the LGBTQ XYZ ABC group, BBQ WTF groups of, just for starters, have basically taken the identity away from all the kids of this generation. And and you got the kids who are constantly accusing me. They're going through, they all think they're so special and they're all broody and angsty and think they're hutchy, and they're always on the internet. Like they're every insulting stereotype that everybody has about teenagers. So why don't we flip the story? Instead of them all being, embarrassing stereotypes, how about they're more or less ordinary kids with superpowers? Ordinary and superpowers. How about their ordinary teen heroes who have been saddled with these stereotypes against their will? And this was my general premise. I changed the description, their description and their power and their look a little bit. Just fiddled around with it. And the idea is that when they first got together, they met on a forum online. It was my idea. Instead of a stupid, we all happen to be in the same area as a villain attacks. They all get together and they meet up on a forum, and one of the guys there is a regular, and he invites them all to come out because he's a reporter and wants to do a story on the, post-Avengers, quote-unquote, life for teenage heroes. And, they say, okay, well, and then they come out there and they meet him. And in the middle of the interview at some cafe, this former villain, an ex-con who has just gotten out after a 20-year stretch, flips his wig and starts tearing the place up. I made him. Basically, the idea is that he is an old guy who had. Old guy in his 60s or so, and 50s or 60s or so, and he had the power of sonic explosions. And anyway, they take him down. They're awkward at. There's a lot of damage and injuries and stuff, but they do manage to save the day. The thing of it is that and then the next day they find out the reporter was not a friend. It turns out he was doing a sabotage piece, and he was looking for, he was trying to do a attack piece on these rotten kids these days, basically the millennials, and he called them the new millennials. And gave them all insulting, stereotypical names, and just basically libeled them, just all but libeled them into the ground, and ruined their reputations and their personally and individually and as a group together, just ruined them forever, and made them a laughing stock. And out of humiliation, they end up sticking together, and their basic goal is to prove, first of all, that they're not the lame stereotypes. They're heroes, and these stereotypes are false. And they also want to find some way to get even with this jackass who ruined their name. And I told one of the things was I changed them up a little bit. I suggested, okay, let's start with Snowflake, and instead of being gender neuter, self-proclaimed Tumblr gender neuter, androgynous girl. What it is that because she is tomboy, she has a boyish build, but because she doesn't because she isn't as girly or as because she doesn't have boobs out to Topeka. The guy stereotypes that she gets constantly mistaken for being, she's mistaken as being a boy, or being a cross-dresser, or being trans, or being gay, or being bi. And the fact that she and her brother live in I forget which neighborhood I picked, but I looked it up. I checked. I did my research. They live in a neighborhood in New York with a really high, it's known as a gay community neighborhood. But because they live there, and because of how she looks, she gets stereotyped as either a lesbian or a trans, and which pisses her off. And her brother, his powers, he has force fields. He can generate force fields around himself, but he can't generate one force field through another. If he surrounds himself with a force field, he can't generate any more force fields outside it. So he has to, he focuses on protecting other people first because of that. And also because he can't, he's very soft-spoken, and due to a laundry accident, both their debut costumes got bleached. His costume was originally going to be fire engine, just bright red, and hers was going to be dark blue. But they screwed up, and they even dyed their hair appropriately, and the thing of it is they screwed it up, and they ended up with a baby blue and soft pink, and because he's soft spoken, because he doesn't use his powers offensively, he can't, or at least he hasn't learned how. But he can only create protective fields, and because he doesn't use his powers offensively in a fight, and because he's very quiet, very very soft-spoken, and very and because he's running around in a pink jumper, he gets labeled gay, and B negative. He's not goth. He is a teenage musician, and he likes, he does like, he likes a broad range of music, but his skin is bone white, his hair is jet black, and he has blood red eyes. He looks like a goth. He looks like every goth's fantasy of being a vampire, which which doesn't thrill him to no end. What it is he's a vampire because he was given an act. In the original canon, he became a vampire because he became a living vampire because they used a serum made from Morbius, the living vampire's blood, to treat him in the hospital. And well, now here he is, and he has to deal with people. People assume that because he dresses dark, and he keeps his head cut. He wears a hood, and he doesn't go out in the sun, and he's pasty white, and everybody assumes that he's this broody, hot topic goth teen. And worse, he has all these goth wannabe vampires, cozying up to him, and he can't stand them because of it. He looks at them with same idea as I had in my own story. They're bug chasers. And then there's screen time. Instead of him just having internet powers, great. He walks out of Wi-Fi range. Does he still have powers? I came up with the idea that he already had a low-level mutant ability, the psychometry. Basically, the general definition is that the ability to know the history of an object by touching it. And he's very smart. He's extremely intelligent, and he's got a brain like Sherlock Holmes. And his psychometry lets him gives him an ability that it basically lets him become a hardcore Sherlock Holmes on steroids, and and then he inhales some internet accessing nanites, internet gas, and because of that, his power is now able to contact the internet. You know, as well as being, he can hear basically anything on the electronic bandwaves and so on and so forth, bandwidth, and he can communicate with computers, and he also has a limited control over simpler machines like light switches and circuits and things like that, and he can affect them to a limited degree. I thought his power was too limited, basically too weak. He was basically nothing but the team know-it-all, and it's like, with no actual useful abilities. And I always wondered about, you have these superheroes with, computer powers, or the psychic control of technology. What would somebody do like that do if they were born like in the 1600s? How would their power manifest? They would have to have some way of, would have to have some sort of effect on the physical world, regardless, just to my thinking. So I gave him a certain level of abilities that even if he's stranded on a island 1,000 miles away from so much as a toaster, he still has some sort of natural ability. And then there's Trailblazer. First of all, I decided that she was short, stocky, and she liked to hike. She's not fat, she's just short and muscular. But because of her build, she's getting constant flack about her weight. She hikes to get away from everybody. To get away from all the people who either hassle her about her, hassle her about her weight when she's perfectly healthy and is the right weight. She's just short, and solid built. It's all muscle. And also to get away from all the people that are constantly trying to draft her into the fat pride movement. She's Native American, and she couldn't give a crap about Christopher Columbus or General Custer or any of all that other 1,000-year-old crap as far as she's concerned. But everybody's always constantly trying to make an issue about the fact that she's Native American. If you could imagine what it is. I can't. You can imagine what it's like to be a minority. Have your head on straight and end up in like a college campus where everybody's wearing their heart on their sleeve, and left their brain in the dumpster, and are trying to make issues about ethnicity, and we're here to defend you, you poor helpless. You poor helpless inferior minority. We'll save you from the oppressive world. That's gotta just fly right up your shorts. And anyway, I put this all together. I wrote it all out, and I spelled it all out, and I described it, and I said, "No, okay. What do you guys think? And what are your ideas?" And immediately, it was like throwing. It was like throwing a pork chop into the backyard full of angry little chihuahuas. Because boom, out of the woodwork, there were people out there that immediately arrived and started accusing me. One, they started because I rewrote Snowflake as not actually being a Tumblr gender, that I was trying to erase people. And they accused me of being homophobic and bigoted and racist, and the usual litany you get from a bunch of these little wet schnauzers whenever their feelings are hurt. And I'm like, wait a minute here, and I'm responding. I'm trying to defend myself, and I'm also saying, could we move on from this? Here, just put your own suggestions out here. And none of them had an idea. None of them had a single idea, not even a bad one. They were just more interested in just throwing a fit at me. because I had offended them. Well, basically, I wasn't playing the game right. I wasn't playing pretend like Princess Poofy Pants wanted to. I am not in a gracious mood right now with these people. And and then eventually, a few people spoke up, and pointed out, dude, you're making his point for him. But and the next thing you know, along comes all the little wet rat poodles are out attacking, and here comes their king, one of the forum administrators, and he suspends my account. Boom. And proceeds to send me a diatribe as long as my arm about how
I can hear your dog whistles blowing, and we're not going to allow that here. You're blowing dog whistles against the LGBTQ community.
and he basically admitted that they had a point system, and I had only accumulated like 25 points out of 100, so he just went ahead and gave me 100. Because he was going to ban me anyway, so he just added in there so nobody would question the suspension, and he gave me the usual crusade lecture. They're great, they're great preachers as long as nobody else can talk back to them, and as long as they think that they're out of fucking arm's reach. Pardon my language, but I'm torqued. I'm just sick of this. I'm tired of it being assumed that every single damn story that comes along, they have to have a Tumblerina in there somewhere. Gay, or bi, or trans, or any one of the And it's interesting, it wasn't they weren't special enough by having a different gender. They invented new genders and new sexualities and put both in separate boxes, so that they were like, I once saw a chart that was literally they were stone cold dead solid serious. There was something like a dozen different genders and alignments, with each with their own little circle and arrow and cross and line symbol that and I'm just ugh. God's running. Look, here's a moral of the story, okay? If you can say the word dog whistles unironically, if you hear dog whistles, it's because you're a bitch. And not a cold hard bitch, not a basic bitch, a whiny, pathetic, neutered little bitch. A sniveling little rat, purse dog, a rat poodle, who another dog wouldn't even dignify as a chew toy. You're a sniveler. You're a whiny little crybully pissant brat who wants to throw a tantrum because nobody's playing Let's Pretend like you want to. Look, fine, you want to play make-believe, great. Go put on your princess dress and go, climb the fairy castle. But you have no right to demand that anybody else plays along with you. And in fact, you have an obligation to come back down to planet reality when it's required of you. You got these people out there that get mad because doctors demand your actual gender when they're doing a medical review. Doctor, you're not respecting my genders. You're not respecting my pronouns. I self-identify as a woman. Well, all right then, ma'am. You have testicular cancer. They want to be a victim so bad. They will torment and harass and persecute anyone just so they can have the special snowflake victim badge. They want to be a victim because in their world, in the leftist world, the only way you can get ahead is by being a victim. Because to a leftist, being productive, being intelligent, being successful, making a company that earns, makes $1 million, or making a new invention that changes the world, or being successful as an artist or writer or musician or an actor or anything. Is proof that you were a villain and you're persecuting someone. Because you couldn't have gotten ahead without persecuting people. If you won the foot race, you're evil and you obviously cheated. So, but the problem is that backfires on them because they can't win the race either. Because they're not allowed to. If they actually win the race, everybody will turn on them and call them evil, and they know it. Look at what happens to a garage band that gets successful. The people that tons of the people that used to follow them suddenly turn around and start screaming and crying how they're a bunch of sellouts. There was this one band back in the 90s. They had a sellout. They were a garage band, and they made and they had a one-hit wonder that it got played on the soundtrack City of Angels, and the movie where this angel becomes mortal because he falls in love with a mortal woman. And then he has he's such a short time with her, and then she dies. And it's a tragic romance thing, and and they wrote the song for it, and their song became this massive hit, and all their fans turned on them because they were successful now. They were sellouts. They were the villain now. They were the enemy, even though nothing about them had really changed. And this is how all these progressives look at it. This is why they're so desperate to cling to their 57 genders, and their 25 different sexualities, because they have, in order to be a victim, you have to be a special category of person, and the specialer the category is, the weirder, in other words, the more irrational and strange and, deranged and separated from reality is, the more you can claim they're persecuting me because they're not recognizing my pronouns. And by being a victim, you can get ahead. People will cosset you. People will, pander to you. People will pet you and tell you what a wonderful, special person you are. People will take you on the Oprah Winfrey Show and tell you what a hero and how courageous you are. For standing up for your right to self-identify as a human speedboat. They can accomplish nothing except be a victim. And they will physically attack if they can, anybody who threatens, that special lollipop, in their candy box, It's so much easier to be a victim, and have people, oh, poor baby, than to actually do something. Yeah, I'm sorry about last stream. I was trying to show you the footage of the last of the big epic fight between Izuku and the villain of the season 4 arc. If you look it up on YouTube, you'll find people doing reaction videos of it all over the place, and it is kick-ass. I'm sorry if you didn't see it. I tried, but I don't know how to do the setup right. Yeah, I read. I sort of read the first couple of paragraphs of your book. It's of your story. I'm looking for how to say it, particularly. I'll be honest, but it really needs a lot of work. Every action. Basically, you have like one sentence that describes, and I'm looking for the words to describe it. I don't want to dump on you. I don't want to dump on you, but it's, this is how it is. It reads. Have you ever listened to a little kid? A real little kid run up to you and try and tell you the story of I don't know, the book they just read or the TV show they just watched, and they try and spit out the entire plot in like one breath. And then the hero climbed the mountain, and the dragon was waiting for him, and then he pulled his knife, and he fought, and they fought, and they won, and just all rushed out like they're trying to get all the details in like 3 sentences. Well, that's how it reads. There's not so much a story there as a framework. I can write. I'm not a professional. I'm not paid to write. I'm paid to draw funny pictures. Sadly, and I have artwork that I've shown nobody. Daniel Meyer has one picture of that, but nobody else has seen it. Anyway, don't ask me why I came up with it. Yeah, really. To get you to where you've really fleshed the story. You really need somebody who knows how to teach writing and such skills. It's the difference between somebody who can do and somebody who can teach. Teaching in itself is a skill, and I do not. It's a skill I do not possess. I can lecture, I can diatribe, I can yell the crap out of myself and at somebody, but I can't really teach them very well. So. You're sort of the writing skill is sort of at square one. There are writing courses you can take online. I'm sure there's probably a dozen YouTube channels on how to write, and how to, if you're really serious about becoming a writer, you need to take the courses. Language classes, English class for literature, composition. The easiest way to flesh out your skill as a writer, read lots. Because my first writing, I started out trying to imitate the styles of other writers, and then I eventually developed my own. It was slow going. It took me decades, because I sort of skipped in the middle and decided, screw it, I'll be an artist. Anyway, Now, here's a warning sign for you. If you're on a forum where you can put in your profile and your name and all that, and one of the features in your profile is that you can post a list of your preferred pronouns. Big warning sign. You're in rat poodle territory. Whingy wet rat poodle territory. You know the kind of dogs I'm talking about. Those little, not even a properly purebred Chihuahua. Chihuahua is a mess anyway. It's basically a dog that's been stuffed in a skin 2 sizes too small. The only part that got out was the eyes. But man, I'm talking these little, ratty little, ghetto purse dogs that you see running around. Little things you see it come running up and you're tempted to stomp. They've had several dogs from those breeds that won you keep winning the world's ugliest dog contest. That tells you how messed up their genetics are. Yeah, well, welcome to the world. Welcome to it, Shiny. This is our life, surrounded by the pathetic. And the only reason that they're a nuisance is because they think they're out of arm's reach. I use the comparison. There's the Ring of Gyges. There's a old Greek story. Gyges was an actual king, and he supposedly had. The mythology says that he supposedly had a ring that let him turn invisible. This was the first invisible man story, basically. And basically the first thing he did after he got the ring on, he realized nobody could see him. Nobody could tell who it was that was doing what he was doing. So he went. And he basically committed rape, murder, robbery, whatever he wanted, and killed the king and took his throne. And that was supposedly, he was apparently not a very popular king when he was alive. And the point was, is if you think you're anonymous, character, self-restraint, morals, ethics, right out the window. Character is who you are in the dark where nobody can see you. And unfortunately, all these people who have basically bullied their way into positions of influence in our media, both the old media and the new media, they're horrible, little rodent people who would never have come out into the light of the day. If they were forced to behave in public, they would eventually scuttle off like cockroaches. But as long as they think they have a hole to scurry to, they'll behave the way they are. You'll notice these people with these people with Antifa. They all wear masks. They all wear masks and hoodies and hide their faces. Just like the members of the Klan wear the hoods over their head. Just like, any other, human lowlife tries to hide behind anonymity. That's what I'm saying. Some people do tell truth when they're anonymous. But far too many of them. This is the more likely human nature. 99 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, people will use anonymity to do what they know nobody else would tolerate out of them. And they would be too cowardly to. If it was known who they were, or if they were in public and within arm's reach. You can, you call me a barbarian. You can call me a barbarian all you want. But the vast majority of these people, these insufferable tumbleriness. What they need is for their daddy and their mama to put them over their knee and blister their backsides. They need an epic smackdown. Running out in the street, tearing off their clothes, smashing things, setting things on fire, screaming, yelling, hooting, and hollering, braying like animals, attacking anybody that looks like the opposition. I've seen footage of these bastards attacking a little old man. Couldn't have been less than 80. Knocking him down, attacking him. The brave heroes of the people. Because they were in masks and hoods, and they figured that nobody could stop them, nobody could catch them, nobody could prove it if they were caught. You want to know what pathetic little slugs they are? One of my favorite videos online is one boy made a mistake of wearing a hoodie that his mama could recognize. She showed up at the rally. They were out there rioting and vandalizing and shit. She marched right at this dumpy little black lady. She marched right up to that one young man standing out there, kill the popo, and she grabbed and she started thrashing the absolute crap out of him. Just whap, 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 just chased him down the street, smacking him upside the head. And I'm like, there you have it. This is how courageous they can't even stand. They can't even stand up to mommy. They're pathetic. The world, the rebels and revolutionaries of history look down on them with shame. Now, I saw a post in Facebook today. Good news, Antifa is at home with their parents. I've seen footage. These people, their behavior is not that of adults in any civilization. And again, I trace it all the way back to the boomers. I mean, you look at how the Democrats behave. I remember back when George W. Bush was president, there was a bunch of politicians in Texas. This was a couple of decades ago. There was a vote coming up that was seriously going to undermine their agenda. The Democratic agenda. It was going to go through. It was going to win. And so, in order to prevent a forum forming, these politicians all boarded a bus and ran away to Mexico and hid out there. Because if they were president anywhere in the state, the core would be reached and people would vote on it, and even if they all voted against it, they'd still lose. So they ran off. They took their ball and ran away. And you look at the campaign of Al Gore. He lost, and they all threw a tantrum and said, "I want to recount." And they recounted and they recounted. Every time they recounted, every time they did a legitimate recount, President Bush, George W. Bush, won by a larger and larger margin. And then finally, the Supreme Court came in and said, no, they kept changing the rules about how votes would be counted, trying to shift the number over in their direction. And finally, the Supreme Court came in and said, okay, you've had your fun, it's over. We've got the less legitimate count. Congratulations. President Bush is now in office. Cope. And the leftists have been claiming that he stole the election, even though he won the next one. He was an 8-year president. Come on. And they tried to claim he stole the election. Ever since then. back when Reagan won. Overwhelming landslide. Overwhelming landslide both times. And both times you had news reporters, card-carrying Democrats, standing out there doing reports. It's a tragedy how few minorities came out to vote. Trying to make it a race thing. When in fact more people of any color voted more than ever before. That's why they lost. And then you see footage of these protests every time that the 20-somethings get together and have a protest at the college campuses. There's footage of someone just behaving like toddlers, and I'm not exaggerating in the least. They're, screaming and crying and throwing themselves on the ground, and just a blazing tantrum. That if I had done that at the age of 6, I would still be cringing at shame at it at the age of 49. But they're doing it at the age of 18 and 20. In full view of the world on camera. Their idea of discussion is to go to a conservative's speaking engagement, stand in the back and scream and yell every time he tries to talk to drown him out. Look up Triggery Puff. I'll do that, Judge. This was when a bunch of conservative spokespersons. One of them, gay as a queer as a $3 bill, but he's a conservative politically. And they were all talking up there, and all the the usual suspects were out in the audience, literally throwing a tantrum. They called her. There was this one emopotamus. I mean, it's just this huge fat cow of a woman. Steven Crowder was one of the spokespersons. He just basically, he finally got fed up with the behavior. He stood up and proceeded to rip everybody in the audience a new one. It featured Milo Yiannopoulos, Christina Hoff Sommers, Steven Crowder, and a couple others. It was supposed to be a debate and discussion thing, and they were out there throwing a tantrum. Here, let's see here. Let me see if I got the right film here, right video. Okay, let's see here. All right, so we can see this. That's window capture 2. It's window capture 1. Okay, this is one of the speakers. And next to her you can see, I forget, that's not Milo. And that's not Steven. Here we go. And here's Trigglypuff. This is what they consider, brave, heroic, revolutionary debate. That is Steven Crowder. This is about the point where he's about had enough. She's just screaming, interrupting, and there she is. I'm looking for the point where she really flips out. Here we go. There you go. That's what they consider a mature adult among leftists. That's just can you? In case you can't hear it, what she screams: "Take your hate speech off our campus! Take your hate speech off our campus!" You're talking, you hate people. Well, I'm starting to now. It's thank you for contributing to my misanthropy. Oh man, sweet merciful crap. I love going on trying to get on a forum and start a discussion. I love going around on Reddit or on these other websites and stuff, trying to establish. But I love posting my stories and making lectures and discussion. I just love going to all that trouble and realizing that my freedom of speech is dependent upon the whims and whimsies of a pathetic, screaming, squalling emopotamus baby like that, who is somehow, through some blasphemous alchemy, been given the controls of the forum. I just love knowing that. I love knowing something like that is running sufficient velocity. I love knowing that at least there's at least one of those those blubber beasts roaming the halls at Archive of Our Own. I love knowing Huffington Post. I once saw a photograph. They took a photograph once of their staff. Every last one of them, a mid-20s, mid-30s woman you wouldn't want to, touch with a 10-foot pole. All just sitting there grinning, but I love the fact that these people have gotten hold, turned every beloved franchise and system. They destroyed the comic book industry. They've destroyed. Oh man, you ought to see their plans for the next phase of Marvel movies. Among other things, they're going to kill off the Hulk and replace him with a She-Hulk. Does that clue you in on where they're going with this idea? Captain Marvel is now supposed to be the new leader of the Avengers. Oh, great, yeah. Look what they did to Ghostbusters. Look what they're planning on doing. They've utterly destroyed Marvel Comics. Now they're going to destroy the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just drop the drawers and take a massive dump right in the middle of it, and then set it on fire. I love what they did to Star Wars. They took something that I loved from my childhood. One of my fondest memories was seeing Return of the Jedi. It was the last days of school, and they bought the the videotape and the VHS. Rolled that thing out, fired up the coal burner on the thing. Got that got that great big clunky TV set that could crush a small child up on a stand, and they popped that video. We were all sitting around the floor watching it. And we watched Return of the Jedi. I had already seen Star Wars. I had seen Empire Strikes Back, and I had read the books before I actually saw the movies. We didn't go to movies when I was a kid, and we didn't have VHS until I was nearly 12. Anyway, we're sitting there, we're watching this movie in school, and it blew my tiny little mind. I was shaking with excitement. I loved it so much because, I was a bullied kid, and seeing the rebels and the little fuzzy Ewoks, beating the absolute mother-loving crap out of the evil Empire. I was like, yes, catharsis. But and then they take it, and they have taken it with the prequels, and they just George Lucas, they should have picked up a pitchfork and just put him out to pasture. Get away from that. Get away from that. You've had your fun. Leave it be. He's gone barmy in his old age. The idea, the plans he has for the, he's just ass pulling stuff. It is absolutely awful, but it's nothing compared to what they actually did to it. And this final trilogy, they killed something I loved right in front of me. And the woman that did it, the head producer, just prancing around the stages and the stage, wearing T-shirts that said "The Force is female," turned it into, just turned it into a special snowflake, feminist footstool, and crapped all over it, and they ruined it. Disney is paying for its sins. They've lost millions. They lost millions on those movies, and they're losing millions on the theme parks that the sections of the theme park they built around them. So Disney is finally getting the ass whooping from the hand of the invisible hand of the marketplace that has been long overdue for decades. And of course, as always, the leftists are doing to us what they claim we did to them. If we didn't give them a platform, they screamed they were being censored. Now they've got a platform, and they're jumping off that platform to rip our platform out from underneath us and make sure that we can get none other. I'm so angry. I've just wound myself up. I'm eating gummy raspberries. They got that, the raspberry candies that have, they're gummy, but they've got the little hard, crunchy outside. Not exactly my favorite. No, I wouldn't go out of my way for them, really, anymore. But being what they are, they're still kind of more-ish. You sit there, nom, 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 nom. You don't realize you've eaten your way through the bag. The problem is that they don't. The problem is that the ones that are doing it are not going broke. They're getting, these woke people. They work their way into a company. They're like a virus. They find a healthy company, burrow into its skin, work their way up to the brain, take the company over from the inside, convince the entire company to to pander to them. Oh, this is the vision of the future, and then, oh yes, this is the vision of the future, and the next thing you know, the company is rotting to death from the inside. And what happens? These people abandon ship. The people that have ruined it abandon ship and go their way, and they're not suffering. They'll probably, with their severance packages and stuff, they'll walk away with millions of dollars. Meanwhile, the company implodes. Like a destroyed cell, taken over by a virus, turned into a virus factory until it kills it. And they go their merry way. What's the name of the director? Ryan something or other. That they put him in charge of the second movie. The second part of the trilogy, and he basically admitted he was going to go. And the people, they're all coming out and admitting it. He basically, he said it himself, but now they're coming out and admitting. He just basically went in and he was determined to destroy everything that the first director set up. You see, because Ryan Johnson, he doesn't make trilogies. He doesn't work with long established franchises. He makes standalone movies like Knives Out. Avant-garde and progressive and challenging and all this other bullshit. And he came in. He was perfectly. He admitted he didn't give a crap about the Star Wars franchise or the universe or the fandom that had been sustaining Star Wars and making it a $1 million golden goose for 40 years. He didn't care. He was going to make his movie. And dance on the rubble afterward. He's come in. They hired him. They paid him an obscene amount of money. He totally trashed the friend. Left. Even if the next director had actually cared, to do it right, there was nothing left for him that he could have. Silk purse, sow's ear. You still have to start out with a sow's ear. And and he came in, he destroyed the franchise and then left. And then the next director came in, did the same thing. The rise of Skywalker. That steaming turd. They basically their whole goal, they said, screw it, we're going to utterly destroy the Star Wars franchise and universe. And if we ever make another Star Wars movie, there'll be nothing left. The slash and burn method that leftists seem to love, like what Hitler did. When they took over Nazi Germany, the first thing they did was they said they went out and started burning books. Their plan was to erase everything that came before them. You see leftist, communist dictators taking over little third world. That's what they do. They go in. They just they smash the statues and the artwork and burn the temples to the ground. And you just destroy any trace of the culture that came before them. They don't build on anything because they only want their face on the side of Mount Rushmore, and they'll smash all the others. You know what I'm saying? And whether you're talking Nazis, Marxists, any despot who gets in power, that's one of the first things they do. Their first goal is, after they'll start destroying the legacy of that country, and then they'll start killing the people. And these people, they're on a small scale. They're penny ante piss ants in comparison. The villainy they do is, but their goal wasn't to come in and build on George Lucas's legacy. Take this this fluke of a movie. It was a fluke. The original trilogy, George Lucas basically stumbled into it. And if it weren't for the people that helped him and did the co-directing for him, especially on Empire Strikes Back, he would have never been as near a success as he was. He's not nearly the demigod he thinks he is. But anyway, but regardless, he had created this trilogy, created this universe, and the fandoms flocked to it. And the fans flocked to it, and instead of building on that, on making it grander and greater and bigger and better, their goal was to come in, smash everything that was already there, and piss on the ashes to mark their territory. And they come in and they do this, and then they have to leave because there's nothing left. But they're doing fine. There's always some other fool out there waiting to, snap them up, give them a job, pat them on the head and say, give us more of your advice. And meanwhile, they leave a trail of ruin in their wake. They get woke, everybody else goes broke. The idiots at Marvel decided that the best way to move forward with their comics was to dedicate them to pandering to people who they could not please. Instead of trying to please the fans who loved what they did and who had supported them and made them a multi-million-dollar franchise for decades, they decided they were going to go out and try to appeal to a bunch of feminists and a bunch of LGBTQ activists, sexual deviant activists. There's no other word for it, and militant leftists, and all the other dandruff flakes of society. These people were not comic book buyers, and if they, if you do right for them, and they're never happy with what you give them. So instead of pleasing the people that they knew how to make happy, they decided to shift their entire business model towards trying to please people whose entire identity revolves around never being happy with anything you do for them. And it's killed them. But it hasn't killed off any of the militant snowflakes. They go their merry way and start all over again someplace else. The gaming industry and the anime and manga industry have managed to laugh them off so far. You have to excuse me, I just took a big bite of chicken. I really should have gone ahead and bought that soda like I planned. Instead, I need to drink one of the, I need to drink a little bit of sodas. Let's get some Kool-Aid packets. And I forgot that I don't have a jug to mix the Kool-Aid in. I got the sugar, I got the Kool-Aid. I just haven't got a pitcher. I use a milk jug, but rinsing one of those out so it's perfectly clean is a bitch. I was saying the comic books, Gamergate, that was their D-Day, that was their Normandy Beach. That was their, basic rule: if a feminist sees a man happy and content and minding his own business, they won't tolerate it. They came over and saw these young men, all these men, sitting at home playing the video games, minding their own business, and decided, you see, you make a product for men, you make a product for young men, and the first thing a feminist does is, why didn't you make this for me? Because it wasn't intended for you, you insufferable she-goat. You want a video game? There's a whole wide world of computer programs and gaming design instruction. Go out there and make one of your own. Now, I want you to change everything you've done for yourself to pander to me. Yeah. Well, they're trying, but they're not making as much headway. They're having trouble with it because gamers generally are people with no more F's to give. As one guy put it, cue the Gordon Freeman voice. Cue the Morgan Freeman voice. Let me get this straight. You found a bunch of people whose idea of a great weekend is to sit around on their butts for literal days on end, grinding away at a computer game and yelling insults and profanity at each other over the internet. And your idea to gain control of them is to outlast and out-insult them. Good luck. Feminists are deplorable beasts. Won't even call them people. They're not people. They, these snowflakes. They're not people anymore. They're not. They've given up their humanity. They've replaced everything inside them. They're a husk. They're like they've replaced every aspect, every worthwhile thing about being a human being that's inside them. They've hollowed themselves out, scraped it clean, and replaced it with little paper thin struts of ideology and and bad attitude and anger. At a world that hasn't played make believe the way they want to. They're an automaton. Running off running off their dogmatic rhetoric like a wind-up toy running off a spring, or a old computer running off of a punch card. They've been called. I've heard other people. One of the terms they use for people is NPC. Incapable of acting outside the incredibly limited, preordained list of instructions that they've been programmed with. And I've never seen, it's an incredibly apt description. I came online with the intention of spending a few hours drawing, and instead, I'm sitting here burning out my spleen. Well, it's spleen squeezing. There you go. Tired of putting up with them. Tired of having to tiptoe around people that... I'm tired of tiptoeing around people that need a swift, steel-toed boot right in their crotch.
Mainly electronic and in-house.
Meet the artist.
And what's
You jackass. Nobody wants to meet you. If they want to meet you, they'll look you up. Quit inserting that crap in your videos. Moving on to more current topics. Talking about, I saw an article that said what will change after the coronavirus. After the lockdown is over. What how will it change? Now, basically, what they did, they listed off a bunch of things that should happen. That ought to happen, that we should be trying to make happen. It's not what's going to happen. You see, most of the after a shakedown like this, after a shakedown to the government and to the economy and to society like this, what's going to happen is basically it's going to filter down to the lowest common denominator. Now, what I mean by that is, after going through a crisis, after a company goes through a crisis, the first thing they do is they start picking all the options that will save them money. They want to look forward to the day when they start making money again, but those choices are going to be put off. The first choices are going to be the ones that lower their costs. Do you follow what I'm saying? And speaking metaphorically, that's true for everybody. Society, religion, politics, culture, we're going to be, most people are going to be, they're not going to be striving to build new systems that will, will be more robust. They'll be trying to lower the cost of everything as it stands. They'll be picking the things that cost less energy, that cost less fuel, that cost less money, that require less effort to sustain under the circumstances. That's not bad. That's how it works. Cut your costs, then work about raising your revenue. Of course, that's one lesson that the government of the world have never learned. But I think first what's going to happen is that a lot of companies are going to start, a lot of restaurants, a lot of brick and mortar companies are going to start, if they're smart, they'll take advantage of all these companies have, so many companies have been wanting, or you hear about them, they're always wanting to open up, like a home delivery service or an internet branch of their business, or a direct to customer service. But they never get around it because they're always, they're too busy running their brick and mortar store. I'm sitting here, you remember me complaining that, every store is, of all the companies and stores and restaurants and grocery stores and everything in this area, in the entire area of this area where I live, and a mere handful of them that are capable of it are actually doing delivery. Of all the grocery stores, even though even though Kroger's and Walmart and Big Eagle and all the others brag about the delivery services that will be starting soon, they never start them, or they start them 1,000 miles away in a different state. They don't have that option anymore. They hemorrhaged business and money because nobody could come to the store except for emergencies. And so they're going to start getting off their duff. Because they're they're finally going to have the downtime to set up the delivery services or expand on the delivery services and start companies that focus on expanding their delivery services are going to thrive. Those that don't won't. Because you got a lot of people here saying that the coronavirus, this is, we've already passed the main swell of the surge. But there are others that say that, the worst is yet to come, that the next week is going to see a massive surge in deaths. I don't know which is right. But what I think is most likely going to happen is that we're going to figure that the danger is past, the lockdown will end, the quarantine will end, everybody will come outside, and then the disease will resurge. Because the Chinese haven't started washing their hands any better. They're the ones that started a little mess, so there's a good sign that they were hoping it would happen to us. That we would catch something nasty off them and be knocked out of the running as the top superpower. But anyway, that's the first thing that's going to change. Generally speaking, a lot of the reluctance to use the internet for things is going to disappear. For years, I have been trying to convince my father. Whenever I can discuss it with him, I'd say, you could say, I'm a shut-in. This is kind of an issue with me. For years, he's semi-retired now. I tried to convince him to run. First I tried to suggest that he record the sermons and the services on a camera and then post it to the internet. He's like, oh no. Because he's an old-fashioned pastor. He wants people. In that brick and mortar church, and he wants them to show up. And if he makes tape. He makes old-fashioned tape, reel-to-reel tape recordings for one of the church members who has to work 3 Sundays out of 4. The guy works. He worked on a tugboat out on the river, and he's constantly up and down the river, and so he can't exactly be in for Sunday morning services on a regular basis. So Dad records the services, and he'll give out copies to shut-ins and to people like this guy, who are separated by distance and from being at the church. But he doesn't make it a regular thing. He doesn't do it at full scale like he could. And I pointed out, Dad, there are thousands. The internet. You could reach millions of people. And there are so many people just in your church that are sick and shut in and can't be here. But no, he'd rather, his solution is to, load people up in a van and drive for a couple of hours to go visit them wherever they are, because, that's just what everybody wants most out of life, to have strange people drop in and preach a sermon in your living room. Anyway, he doesn't like the idea. But that's going to change. I mean, there's so many churches, they can't hold services. In fact, it's illegal in some places right now to hold services because of the coronavirus. You get a few dozen people together, and one of them sneezes, and oh crap, here we go again. More people are going to entertain the notion that gathering together doesn't mean you have to haul your heavy carcass halfway across the county, just to sit in a pew. People are going to, mature a little bit about in their attitudes about that. And maybe people like me will be able to fellowship with other Christians a little more, be able to see a few more sermons, be able to participate in the church family, and just being able to do that, you let people feel human again. I can testify to that. Their solution would be, I talk about how lonely I am and how I'm not able to go to church. Their solution would be to, to bring out the church van, load me onto a cart, and drag my aching, hurting body, over 20 miles of crappy roads so that they can prop me up in a corner on a bench, and so everybody can look at me and go, oh, he's so faithful. Now, last church, one of the churches he pastored at, there was a guy tied to an oxygen tank. The man was on an oxygen tank. He was like 90-something years old, and and so was his wife, and his health was a wreck. But Dad would drive those dirt roads in that rickety van, and they had to build steps so that they could get him up in the van, and they hauled this poor old guy all that way. Just so he could sit, in person, in the when what we could have done is we could have given him, just given him a computer and a simple internet account, and showed him how to log on to YouTube and teleconferenced with him. Just let him attend the sermon, telecommunicationally, My grandmother in her last few years, she couldn't leave the house, because it was a no can do, and so their idea, their solution was to have people troop in and out of her house. exposing her to God knows what germs. Just hooking her. I can understand another thing why pastors and such are absolutely mortified at the idea of letting the internet into the church. Because well, let's face it, it's not a nice neighborhood in here. It's downright nasty in corners. You don't want some kid in Sunday school coming in there, fiddling around, getting past the firewall, and getting an education on Pornhub. But there are ways to deal with that. There are ways around that. Come on. I think the idea of people attending, virtual church attendance, that's going to become more common. Because it's just not safe anymore for people in their 70s, 60s, and 70s and 80s to be trucking back and forth when it's not necessary. Are you speaking to them? Can they see you? Can you see them? Can they hear you? Can you hear them? They're present. Of course, he doesn't agree. We've got this. I suppose we've got this almost superstitious attachment with being physically, with having the meat locker we're stuck in, physically present. In close proximity to all the other meat lockers. I could be full of crap. Could be. But nobody, but I think this is going to happen. And I think that more and more churches are going to, pull the stick out, get the lead out of their pants, and set it up so that people can access their sermons, even if nothing more than putting recordings up on the internet so people can watch and listen to the music and hear the sermon. Now, other things are going to change. It's possible, it's not very likely. It's possible that we might see the end of the handshake. You know what I'm saying? We were already a germophobic society before the coronavirus. And there was a reason that hand gel was actually a thing before that. There was a reason that it was around to be bought in bulk. Seriously, and I think that this might be another, this might be another round. Homeschooling is going to get more traction. It's a possibility. I think that the public schooling system is going to, the teachers unions are going to fight tooth and nail to stop their own demise. But we've already got people there, schools that are set up where the teacher is sitting at home teaching the lesson to a camera, and all the kids in their class are sitting at home watching their monitors, following along. Ta-da! We've established it works. Let's do it. I think there, one of the things they speculate about is there's going to be a lot of brick and mortar constructions and buildings that are suddenly going to be, available because more and more companies are going to realize just how much work can be done over the phone, just how much crap they can just phone in. Of course, this depends a lot on how much longer the isolation goes on, how much longer, how much more the economy gets, compressed and depressed. And it's going to be all about cost-cutting measures. Of course, we're going to see a turnaround for the people in the lower end of the rung, because prices of things that are normally luxury, they're dropping all over the place. The price of gas is dropping. Everything from Carnival cruises to a tank of gas is just dropping. And a lot of the more ridiculous companies are realizing,
Maybe we can't, maybe we really can't afford to charge $100 a night to sleep in our hotel,
And a lot of these companies are going to be reduced to drastic cost-cutting measures. They're going to have to reduce their services, reduce their business. They're going to have to, and they're going to have to hustle again. They're going to, these companies are going to learn how to pinch a penny. But it's a ill wind that blows no good. It's going to mean a massive drop in prices in just about everything, which we desperately need. Prices for everything, from basic staples to large ticket items, we're going through the roof. We were heading for an inflationary bust. And the only reason we were keeping ahead of it is because we were selling our debt abroad. But this might buy us some time and give poorer people a chance. I've seen more business in the last month than I've seen in the previous 3. Which is rather shocking. A $50 round-trip plane ticket for New York. Yeah. Honestly, there's nothing, there's nothing saying that this is, you're saying are pastors in Louisiana facing charges for holding service with hundreds of people. They've had a couple of cases. A pastor that tried to claim the coronavirus was just, hype. He died of it recently. Maybe we'll all be together. That's the thing of it. This is the problem of the situation. Is that the coronavirus is not the monstrous threat that everybody thinks it is or thought it was going to be. But we are working around the clock, going to drastic extremes, trying to prevent it from becoming one. Disease prevention. If you do your job, they think you didn't do anything. I can't help wondering if offering, instead of shaking hands, offering some hand lotion is going to be a new thing. Hello, how do you do? Oh, Eli, T-Mug, you're rereading Nix's Family? Yeah, well, when, what's the slogan by Bear Grylls? Adapt and improvise. That's what I'm talking about. You can't attend in person. Record your sermon and mail it out. Or email it out, or broadcast it live over the internet. Come on! You have the technology at your fingertips to to talk to people all over the literal flippin' world. You can literally talk live to people on the other side of the planet. Look them eye to eye. You could hold a sermon where you could hold a church service where you had church members scattered in Japan and Moscow and Europe and the North America and down in Mexico and do it all at the same time. Come on, people in pursuit of filthy lucre do it all the time. Can't you use it for a higher purpose? You can't be together for the sake of your physical safety. This isn't exactly persecution of the church. This is just people trying to do the right thing and keep you alive. So adapt. Nobody wants to adapt. Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants to reconsider things. You can't even get people to reconsider how they arrange the sermons and the services. My dad, when he was younger, he talked a little bit about the idea of instead of having a morning service at Sunday and an evening service at Sunday, why not just have one long service? Have everybody come together, have the morning service, then take a break and have lunch there at the church, and then go on straight into the next service, and then all go home. Why? Why do they have two services in the first place? Why do they, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday, nobody, there's no biblical injunction, thou shalt meeteth together on the Sunday of the morning and the evening of the Sunday, and on Wednesdays thou shalt prayeth long loud prayers, where you reciteth my name multiple times in every sentence. Come on. There's no, most of the ways that people do things in the church are just tradition, but they're you'd sooner get them to change the Ten Commandments. You'd sooner get them to vote over which of the Ten Commandments to show than you will to get them change how they arrange their services on Sunday days, Sunday mornings and nights. To these pastors that got arrested, I say, get over it. Do you have a camera? If you have a cell phone, if you have a smartphone, you've got a camera, a video camera, no less. Do you have a computer at home? Do you have internet access? Get the stick out of your butt and the lead out of your pants. Go and record your service. And go out there, set up a YouTube channel, get your all your homebound people on it, and hold a sermon. Come on. I know that you're terribly going to miss having to get up early on a Sunday morning and stuff all four of your children into clothing that that is the most uncomfortable and ugly looking thing that you've got for them, but it's, proper church wear, and cramming them and trying to get them to eat breakfast, cram them in the car and get to the church right on time so that you can look like a proper Christian. But I think at least during the quarantine you can adapt to the 21st century just a hair. You'll have to excuse me. That's 20 years of being raised in a home, in a Christian home, talking. Some people, just they thrive at that. It's familiarity. It's home and hearth and comfort. To have these, unchanging, you get up, you get up and go to Sunday meeting clothes and go to Sunday meeting, and then you come back, eat lunch, and then you go back again, and the routine, the familiarity of it, change up anything and they freak out. I can tell you that for a fact, because my father pastored one church down in Pennsboro, West Virginia. Little town, it's basically just a little bend in the road kind of town. Used to be a fairly thriving town, and then the railroads pulled up stakes, and now it's just slowly dying. Just fading away. Pretty town though. Lots of hill. It's in the hills, lots of trees. Cozy little library. I was very fond of it, and they had a church that was in a it was built in a funeral home basically. The church service was held in the main auditorium, and the rest of the rooms were used for Sunday school classes and pastor would live in the apartment above where the undertakers used to live. And anyway, it was a small church, maybe a dozen members, if that. But they were hanging in, just hanging in there. And then, the house was the building was a white elephant. It was falling apart, and repairs were costing more and more, and taxes were going higher and higher. And Dad did the numbers and said, we'd be better off if we, his plan is that we'd get rid of the building and start attending church. We'd have our church services at the senior citizen center in a town just a couple of miles over, because some of the people were traveling from other towns, other little towns, all the way over to Pennsboro. And he picked out one that was a slightly more central location. And that was why we ended up moving to Cambridge. Anyway, we're having our church services at this, and fewer people showed up. And, we had gotten up to like 15, 20, 20, 25 people, I forget how many. And then we started having church services. The plan was eventually to, save up enough money to eventually get another church building. One that wasn't falling apart at the seams. But anyway, people stopped attending. At first, it was just we had a couple dozen people, and then we had maybe a dozen people. Then we had 3 or 4 or 5, and then we had 1 or 2, and then eventually, it reached a point where we'd go there, we'd get all dressed, get up, drive there, and sit there. We'd reach a point where we no longer set out rows of aluminum chairs. We just sat in the circle of comfy chairs that they had there. I like that much better. I did. But we'd get there and we'd wait and wait and wait, and nobody would show up. And so we wouldn't have services that day. And me being me, being a slothful creature, it's like, yay, no church services today. And we'd go home, and we would have an extra. Basically, we'd have an extra Saturday. From my perspective, it's kind of sad of me. It's one of the things that perturbed me back then and bothers me now, is that I didn't enjoy church services. I'd go, and sometimes it was good to be there. So I really didn't enjoy it. I didn't like getting up to go to church. I didn't like, going through all that, and it was a relief when I had a reason not to go. And if that doesn't make you speculate about the state of your soul, what can you say? I really need to spend some lonely time with God. My mom, when I was a child, I was told the message of Jesus Christ about how He died on the cross for me, paid for my sins with His sacrifice, and how He died and was buried in the tomb and rose again 3 days later to prove His victory over death. And I believed, and I prayed, and I asked Jesus to be my Savior. And I've been plagued with doubts about the salvation of my soul ever since. Because I look at myself, and especially in my later years, I look at myself, and what a wretched, sinful mess I am, and the question keeps coming back: how can anybody have Jesus in his heart and be living like this? I'm told that there isn't a Christian on the face of the earth that doesn't struggle with that. Knowing that you're not alone doesn't, knowing that you're, you know, knowing that you're not alone on the Titanic doesn't change the fact that you're on board the sinking ship, Hooray, I'm not the only mess around here. That doesn't help you in a bit, because you're still a mess. Hooray, I'm not the only one whose hair is on fire, Anyway, moving on. Okay, I've really got to find out. I've got to get some sort of candy jar or something. I've got like five. I bought a 5-pound bag of. Or online. I ordered a bag of Haribo raspberry candies. They're gummy candies, like gummy worms or gummy bears, and they're covered with like a little berry shell, little pebbly shell. I can't say that they're I'm trying them. I wanted to try them. I've got them. I've tried them, and can't say they're my favorite candy, but they're candy, and they're very more-ish, as the Irish say, because you just narm, 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 and then you look down and half the bag's gone. But I've got this big bag. The bag is 5 pounds. My good grief. And, I just sort of overshot the mark. You don't realize how much 5 pounds, how much 5 pounds can really be. And, now I've got to, I gotta find some way to store these things so I'm not sitting here with an open bowl of them, rotting my insides out with sugar. Excuse me a minute. They're right on one thing. The Constitution does guarantee a right of a freedom of assembly. But we live in an age where people can assemble in entirely different ways. Being able to assemble online. Being able to assemble as an audience to a television broadcast. It's just a matter of medical necessity that we cannot assemble in the traditional bodies pressed together in a room fashion. There you have it. The problem is that their assembly is not merely, it's putting other people, themselves and other people at risk. It's a ticklish point. That's an interesting angle. I wonder if anybody has ever, all the censorship that's going online. If anybody has ever, instead of tackling it from the angle of freedom of speech or press, how about has anybody ever attacked it from the angle of that people busting up YouTube channels and Reddit forums and things like that is violating their freedom of assembly? Albeit virtual assembly. That's that might prove an interesting question. That might may set a very interesting legal precedent if anybody does do it. If they're going to ignore, you point out you're not just violating my freedom of speech, my freedom of press. Because the internet this is why it's called social media. You're violating my right of freedom of assembly by canceling my channel and unsubscribing my audience. What if somebody takes that angle? Might make for a very interesting legal 1-2 punch. Field it to your local lawyer and see what he says. I forget that the internet is not just a medium of expression or press. It's also a medium of communication and connection, socialization. Now I'm really wondering about that. I'm wondering if anybody has ever tried, and why not? And wondering if it might actually set the censor monkeys on a back foot to suddenly be hit from that angle. Also, freedom of assembly is peaceful. I believe it is right to lawful assembly, peaceful and lawful. In other words, the premise being is that you're gathered together not for a violent or criminal purpose. So, they can whack you around from that angle too. Okay, I'm running out of steam, which is not unusual. Let's see, it is 9:26. We've been at it for a little over 2 hours. Turns out I do have a Tumblr. Got it and forgot all about it. It's called Brain Crumbs. Haven't used it for nothing. I just posted this thing to it. Posted it to Twitter. Twitter. So many questions, so many issues, so many problems, so many things to struggle with and to fight about. Me, I'm out of energy. I had a hard morning this morning. Just because of my physical condition, my legs are horribly deformed. And there's no real treatment, and surgery wouldn't help either. And There's no medicine I can take. There's a form of therapy. It's basically lymphatic massage, but just going to a professional and getting that costs several $100s a visit. And guess what? My Medicaid only covers a certain number of visits a year. And this is something you have to do every week, 2 or 3 times a week, and you have to go to them, and I can't do that either. So but anyway, my legs, just and just a bad episode of just looking at these lumping legs, and I got these swollen, just malformed lumps of legs. Just the circus freak legs, and I mean, I'm not exaggerating. They're awful. And for just a minute, I just said where I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it another second looking at my legs. Just having this dead weight hanging off me. I can stand and walk, but it hurts. And I mean, elephant legs. I'm not kidding you. Flaps and folds and lumps and just skin scar tissue too here and there. And it's just I couldn't stand it. I just had a fit sitting there, just shaking my fist because I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. One of those I couldn't stand it, can't stand it, can't stand it, can't stand it, can't stand it kind of things. There are days where I have seriously contemplated the pros and cons of just getting an outright amputations. Just getting the legs cut off because they can't fix them, and they're only going to get worse, and they're a horrible source of bad health for me because with the slightest injury they get infected, and the wounds won't heal, and I don't know that having them reduced to stumps would change anything either, though. I can't even begin to imagine what I'd have to go through just for recovery. And I really don't know how my life would get a whole lot more interesting trying to live with no legs. I could do it, and maybe not having these deformed legs hanging off me and dragging me down. I'd probably be more mobile with no legs than I am with 2 messed up ones. There's also the fact that if I got the legs amputated, that'd be that the balloon would go up and my family would be all over me to move in with them, so they could look after me. Because just a minute. The actual name of it is realitycheck01.tumblr.com. Here, I haven't used it for anything. I haven't got anything to post on it. The instant I start posting anything on there is when all the Tumblriners are going to come out of the woodwork. He's invaded! Do I have anything else on this page? Uh, oh my. I'm sort of okay. What did happen? What happened ages ago? I forget what happened ages ago. Well, I've got a Tumblr. It seems I've got a Tumblr page. Yay! What am I going to add to it? I don't know. Well, I could start adding my live streams to it. Okay, well. Oh yeah, Tumblrness. I'm just saying, if I started, interesting, Tumblr started, Tumblr banned all the adult artists from, Tumblr threw out all the adult artists, and surprise, surprise, their membership imploded, and their profits imploded, and then Patreon has been kicking people out, not just for adult artwork, but also for being too far right wing. There's a fellow by the name of Sargon. He's an online YouTuber, and they basically canceled him. Just screwed him. He was making several $1,000s a month. Something like $10,000 a month, just from his Patreon connection, and they shut down his account. Boom. He was making himself money. He was making them money, but he was one of the unclean. So out he goes. Same story all over and over. I'm wondering about Patreon myself. They haven't given me any trouble. I haven't been giving them any. I don't know. I haven't done anything controversial enough, I suppose. And but I know that Clownfish TV, the Clownfish channel on YouTube, Neon and Geeky Sparkles. They do their own channel online, and they used to have a Patreon. They used to be, they admitted they used to stump for Patreon, because Patreon came out and recruited them and said, hey, we like what you're doing. Let's give you a Patreon account. And now they're saying Patreon's not sustainable. And so Patreon is trying to leverage things. And it's the creators who are suffering. Big surprise. And and they're starting to get PC'd out. So where and basically Geeky Sparkles and Neon said they set up their own thing. Basically, just having setting up encouraging people to make scheduled you can make scheduled regular donations with PayPal. No need for a Patreon account. And I've been thinking about switching over to that, talking to, finding out more and switching over to that in general entirely. Just PayPal, no Patreon. And, but, I'm not particularly thrilled with the idea of trying to convince everybody on Patreon, oh, hey, just drop the whole Patreon thing and just change it over, No. I don't need to be rocking the boat, everybody's busy and they got better things to worry about. So I'm not going to mess with them until they start actually giving me any kind of trouble. For now. So.
Yippee-ki-yay!
Anyway. There's no good thing that lasts. Not for long. Okay, it's been 2.5 hours. Hello, Amiga Dragon. Sorry you caught me. It's just I was getting ready to. I'm getting ready to sign out. Close to it. In fact, I think I am. It's. I'm at this point. I'm just spinning the wheel. So I think the show's done. Okay. Well, oh goodness, everybody's clocking in now. Everybody's signing on. We got 10 people. 10. We've got tens of people in the audience. People. Okay, oh geez. I was just sitting here thinking, I'm tired. I've been at this for 2 hours, and I'm ready to sign off. And here they are! 10 people. Just bad rushes here. 12! Our audience has doubled! Holy crap, where are they all coming from? Seriously, where are they all coming from? Because I have no idea where... We got, okay, and we lost 2. Wah! But 10 people still. Dang, where is everybody coming from? What does it say that I think 10 people in the audience is astonishing?
Dude, you really suck,
Oh boy. Yes, RH Jr. does have a Patreon. Yes. Let's see here. How would Gilly handle... I've got a half-finished comic strip that shows how Gilly would handle the coronavirus hype. www.patreon.com www.patreon.com/RHJunior. I sound like All Might from My Hero Academia Abridged. Where is this? What is this? What is this? Oh, okay. It's weird coming into my own page from this direction. So, www.patreon.com/RHJunior. Okay. I also have a Tumblr. I didn't know I had a Tumblr. I apparently made a Tumblr page ages ago, and I haven't looked at it since. And I was looking at the buttons to say, post this on Tumblr, and I was, making the announcement for everybody that, hey, we're live streaming, and I'm poking at all the little buttons. I posted up on Facebook, I posted up on Twitter, and then it says Tumblr, and I'm like, boot. Surprise, you have a Tumblr. It's called Brain Crumbs. I'd forgotten about that. Apparently, I don't have a blog. I'm going to make a blog. I'm going to hit the B and make a blog. That way I can post to my blogger. Blogger. Blog. How many people are going to know that that's short for weblog? How many people, how many of our children and our grandchildren are going to look at that? What's that funny little shape? It's a telephone. Telephones don't look like that. And he holds up a rectangle, Gonna have a real hell of a time explaining the hourglass. Anyway, just you gotta spread. I realize one of the things I gotta do is I gotta spread. I've always been embarrassed about posting the same drawing in dozens of places. I realize that's the absolute exact wrong thing to fuss about. Post the art, post the art, post the art, post the art everywhere. I've got a Facebook. I've got a DeviantArt. I've got I've even got a Fur Affinity. Kind of wondering about keeping that one, but I'll leave it there. And I need to start just post the stuff everywhere so that the people can see it. Yay! Okay, I've got a Tumblr. I'm gonna fill that mother up with my archive of art. I've been doing it backwards. What I've been trying to do is I promised this special area. I promise I'm trying to keep it one group only gets this particular piece of art, and one group only gets this particular piece of art, and
It's not working.
I'm terrible at self-promotion. I'm such a slow learner. They say experience is the best teacher. It's also the slowest one. But even experience is standing behind me with the flog over her shoulder. Oh, for crying out loud! What have I got to do to get through to this guy? Okay. Okay. I need to rebandage my legs. I got a couple of spots. I tried to go to the doctor. I tried to arrange I called the doctor. I made an appointment for April 7th. It was arranged. I called and arranged transportation. And then the night before I was supposed to, Monday night, I said, I better check and make sure that I've got transportation. I called back. I said, well, there's nothing here that says you scheduled for transportation. Bastards! So I missed my doctor's appointment again after a month, after delaying it for a month. And so now I forgot to call the doctor today, so I've got to call him tomorrow sometime in the middle of the day and make a scheduled appointment and then schedule the transportation again. So they can send out a wheelchair accessible vehicle to haul my lumpen deformed butt from here to the doctor's office and back. And then I've got to figure out how to get my prescriptions filled. There's a place here that there's a community service thing that provides transportation for the elderly. Especially they have handicap accessible vehicles and all this other crap, but the thing of it is they only do it for people age 60 and older, and I'm not 60 and older. I'm only 49. I don't count. And I've cussed and sworn and complained about that too. So allow me. I can just picture somebody walking up behind you right now. What the hell is this guy doing? Nothing, just screaming. Freddie. Oh yes. By the way, yeah. So many things. So many things. Just to start on. Just to start on, and I'm going nowhere. I'm spinning my wheels. I've got an audience of 9 whole people. I've lost my mind. Okay. This is what you call a second wind. It's either that or maybe the sugar's kicked in from the raspberry beans. The raspberry jellies. They're not very jelly-like. That's too crunchy. It's like chewing raspberry-flavored crunchy sugar. And, it's if you're just craving, if you're just a lazy muncher, it's fine. You ever had peach rings? Peach rings, those little gummy candies with with the sugar coating. And, I love those. Oh, those are tasty. I've had ones that were raspberry watermelon flavored. Those are good. Watermelon flavored. Real watermelon is sadly not watermelon flavored enough to taste like watermelon anymore. It may just be that it's really hard to get a really, really, really good and ripe, well-grown sweet watermelon. They have to be just right. You thump them, and they're supposed to sound hollow like a drum. That means that the sugar's forming, and and they're all sweet and tasty. And how many of you have ever sprinkled salt on a melon? I'm talking like muskmelon, cantaloupe, watermelon. You sprinkle a little bit of salt and the flavor just pops out. Try that. Fearless leader commands you. Salt on a melon. Out in your garage, you have an unopened pack of 8-inch floppy. Well, there you go. You could probably sell them to a collector on eBay for a bundle. Be careful, they might accuse you of hoarding. Asshats. I don't care if somebody goes out and spends $10,000 on whatever, it's their money. They spend, and what happens? They resell it. If nobody buys, they drop the price until somebody does. Voila. And you have people like that. That's what prevents shortages, like we were suffering with the toilet paper. They come in to see the toilet paper is $5 a roll, and people come in and see toilet paper is $5 a roll, and they go, "Whoa, maybe I don't need a truckload of this stuff." And and by God, there's actually stuff left on the shelf after they're gone. What you have is that people are being forced to keep the prices artificially low. People come in, clear out the shelves, and there's nothing left for anybody at any price. After all after thousands of years, after all the proof that the open market and capitalism, the more nobody's ever they say there's never been such a thing as pure capitalism. Yeah, well, the closer we get, I can observe, the closer we get to pure socialism and communism, the more of a hellhole the world becomes. The closer we get to pure capitalism, the better life becomes. The better people do, the more well-off people are, the more prosperous everybody becomes. They hate that because capitalism has when it broken down, capitalism has some of the strictest moral rules you can have. It boils down to thou shalt not steal. That all exchanges must be voluntary and fully informed. That deceit or force are illegitimate forms of transaction. Thou shalt not steal. And the only part, and nobody cares about if you care about race or gender, and you pay the cost for your beliefs in the open marketplace. If you're a racist or a sexist or anything, well, congratulations. Nobody of the race or gender that you are biased against will buy your product, and so you don't prosper as much. Meanwhile, the guy over here who doesn't give a rat's ass what race or gender you are, he's selling stuff hand over fist because he's getting all the customers you don't have. Congratulations. Welcome to the balancing justice of the invisible hand of the marketplace. Now, what's more, if you have people that are prejudiced, on the other hand, you have it also means that the prejudiced people won't bother anybody else because they'll all go over to this one a-hole who sells like, I don't know, racist sandwiches or something. What's an omame? I have no idea. They're building a wall around the coronavirus. Well, they could probably build a wall along the border of Mexico. So that's what they're building the wall down south out of. Giant rolls of Scott tissue. They're using it to make armor for their kids. No. What they're doing is that they take the kid, they dunk them in the vat of hand sanitizer, and then well, actually, what they do is they take the toilet paper and mix it with the hand lotion until it's a nice thick paste. and then they sort of plaster it all over the child as a layer of ablative armor. And and when they get hungry, they take whatever is left over and whip it up into a tasty treat with whatever eggs and milk are left over. Isn't it interesting? Everybody's screaming bloody murder because Trump has been saying this entire time we need strong borders to protect our country. We need to control who comes in and out of our country. We need to be free of the control. We need to have alternatives to depending on everything from China. We need to be unshackled from China. Unequally yoked together, people. Been talking about this one for thousands of years. And he's been saying this, and they're talking, and they've been saying, well, what a surprise. Here comes the coronavirus. Here comes the Wuhan virus. Let's call it what it is, the Wuhan virus. Though I still prefer the name Kung Flu. No, Wuhan virus. Here's a little horror story. It wasn't just the fact that these wet markets, people were eating dogs and bats and crap. Here's the kicker. This isn't making many news stories. This isn't making many news headlines. But it turns out that Chinese scientists, from these laboratories, from these virus laboratories in that area, were selling their dead lab animals to the wet meat market. There was one guy who was making thousands and thousands of dollars just selling, dead rats and guinea pigs and and monkeys and shit to this meat market. Instead of they're supposed to incinerate the things afterwards. What would a Rash's sandwich look like? White bread, of course. Aryan white. Milled in the hills of Germany. Let's start one. Let's start. The Chinese Communist Party virus, the CCP virus. Let's see how long Winnie the Maoist tolerates that one. You may have forgotten this, but the Hong Kong protesters, a lot of these companies, Blizzard and Disney, were brown-nosing the Chinese government even as they were cracking down on the Hong Kongers. One guy, this is the beauty and the horror of the internet. One guy got mad about it, and he went on one of these forums and said, "Here, I've got an idea. How about we take what's her name? There was this one character in. He was particularly mad at World of Warcraft sucking Chinese butt. Because among other things, Blizzard. There was this one Chinese guy who won the recent championship, League of Legends, and he stood up and he said, my heart goes, something along the lines of prayers for the freedom fighters in Hong Kong, and people freaked, and the guys who were emceeing the whole match actually dove under their desks to get off camera. And so World of Warcraft, Blizzard, they banned him for like a year from ever playing, and they refused to and they took his prize money too, refused to give it to him. And people, and the World of Warcraft community, the Blizzard community, ripped him a new a-hole for that. They finally broke down and gave him his money, but they still kept up the ban. Let's see. Overwatch. There was this one character in the World of Warcraft game, Mei, M-E-I. And canonically, she is Chinese. And so, just to get revenge, he said, let's teach these bastards a lesson. Let's take one of their characters, one of their Overwatch characters, and turn her into a symbol of the Hong Kong protesters. And the fan artists all got together, and the artists got together, and the writers got together, and they all started doing this. And here, let me pull up the picture. Here she is. Let me shrink the window a little bit. And that's Mei. You know, she has like an ice. You know, she's in the game Overwatch, and she has like an ice gun and a robot sidekick and all that. And that's why she's wearing winter clothes. She was stationed on the North Pole. Anyway, they made her a symbol of the and the artists and these beautiful freaking champions came together and started drawing pictures of her wearing the Hong Kong protest masks and carrying, the umbrellas became symbols of the protesters too, because they carried the umbrellas to protect themselves from things like flying tear gas canisters, and also to protect them by hiding their faces from cameras. So these guys, these were the protesters, and these beautiful freaking champions. They turned her into a symbol of the Hong Kong protests. And it wasn't a week before the people in Hong Kong, the protesters in Hong Kong, started using her as a symbol themselves. I think there were even a couple of cosplayers dressed up as Mei in the protest marches. And I'm like, you beautiful bastards, you magnificent bastards, I'd buy you a 6-pack of Mountain Dew. You magnificent beasts. And they also started doing it with some of Disney's stuff. They started, they made a deliberate effort to associate Winnie the Pooh with the Chancellor of China, and the people in Blizzard were just tied in knots because look. You know what? The whole reason that we made China, no other reason than China. All the bullshit about if we make them favored nation, trade nation status, they will be exposed to capitalism and they'll adopt our ways and freedom and bald eagles in America and yay. And well, it doesn't work that way. The real reason, it was just plain greed. How many people are in China? What's the population of China? Over 1 billion. American companies were, the American companies, pigs that they were slavering at the chops at the idea of having, 1 billion Chinese people to sell T-shirts and jeans and Coca-Cola to. And then they find out how it, and then they get over to China, and eventually we start opening companies and factories in China. Wow, the Chinese people are such cheap labor, disposable too. And the next thing you know, instead of China going, instead of the Communist Party of China finally collapsing under its own weight, what happens when you try and use money to win over a tyranny? You make a fat tyrant. The Communist Party in China would have gone the way of the one in Russia and the Soviet Union if it hadn't been for America just basically vomiting money into them. And then the only free place in the East in all of China was Hong Kong. because the British kept control of it, up until the year 2000, in which they were, by contract, they were supposed to turn it over to the continental government, and they did. Problem was, is when they finally, they made this agreement back when China was still, an empire, and now they were, instead of turning it over to the Chinese emperor, they were turning it over to the Red China, and so now, and well, this is where we are now. And now this this virus popped out of the woodwork, and the next thing, surprise, everybody's forgotten about the protesters in China. That's the beauty and the terror of it's almost an even divide. You can, for every story of the internet of people just getting together and just being absolute assholes, there'll be another story of people coming together on the internet and doing something. I'm choking up over this. I'm seriously, starting to tear up and choke up over this, because this is just magnificently beautiful. Because it kicked, you can't think of anything, more, generally speaking, more helpless than a bunch of people sitting at their computers playing video games. You can't think of anything more, weaker, physically speaking, with threat to no one. And they all came together, and they gave both a corrupt, greedy company and the Communist Party a massive two-way kick in the balls, and it's just absolutely magnificent. Those Chinese protesters, they probably got a statue to make. Now they ought to build a statue to the net geek, the American net geek, anonymous. We are legion. We do not forget. We do not forgive. You hear other stories where people come on the internet, they save somebody's life. Some guy slips into a heart attack, and they manage to get they manage to triangulate, just zoom in on him and get the emergency services there from 1,000 miles away, or they'll find out about some bastard torturing his pets and animals, filming himself because he thinks it's funny. And they tracked him down like the most ruthless hellhounds on earth, and just utterly wrecked his life, and things like that. And faith in humanity. A little bit left, just a little bit, and you think deep down, maybe this sort of thing is the reason that God said, I think I'll keep them, after all's said and done, I'll keep the species. And, that's what it's all about, man. Making a difference. Hoping you can. And I would love to think that, someday I do something that sends off shock waves like that. Change the world. Not just change the world, change it on a spiritual level. Something that, God alone could get behind and make happen. Like those people that, they smuggled, there's people who smuggled copies of the Bible into third world countries and into the Middle East and into the communist countries. Oh yeah, absolute units. That's a good description. They're amazing people. Oh my, where all the music stopped again? Doggone it. I hate it when they do that. It's not playing. Hello? Music on. Music on. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, why can't I hear it? Uh-oh. Oh, I turned it down too low. I couldn't hear it because it turned it off. Me, I'm smart. Me, I'm smartest. Okay, let me see here. This is open recent Hippo Birdie. Oh, for those who missed it, this is my did a recent commission. No, that's not it. It's an old one. There we go. Hippo Birdie to you. I love how that hippo looks. It's just something about it, every now and then you draw, when you draw, you get something it just clicks. And you look at it and you go, that came out just right. Just right. I've only felt that way about 2 or 3 images, just perfectly, perfect in their simplicity, almost iconic. Not to say world shaking, but it's just you just as satisfying as seeing a jigsaw puzzle piece just snap into place. It's a me thing, I suppose. I don't know. I'm shuffling around between windows trying to figure out which button to push here. What does this one do? Plunk, Okay, Freety, see you later. Of course they did. Yeah, they moved a tank division next to Hong Kong. Here, you want to talk about calling people's bluff? The Chinese, maybe it's something about Asia. I don't know. They just don't seem to learn the lesson. It's an Asian cultural thing. Something about it just sets your hackles on end. There's this, the whole inscrutable thing, where they sit there and look at you stone faced, and and do as they put. Just something about it just sets, when they're antagonistic to you, it can really set your hackles on end. But anyway, let me tell you, this actually happened in Vietnam. After they laid down the no man's land and the borderline between the two, the North-South Vietnam border, right on the borderline, there was a particular tree. The line went straight through it, and the North Korea insisted it was their tree, and South Korea insisted it was their tree, and one day the North Koreans tried to settle the argument. They went out there in the middle of the night and chopped the tree down. And the next day, the American division that was stationed there sent out a couple of trucks, a bunch of soldiers with shovels, a couple of tanks, and a brand new sapling. They went out there, they pulled up that stump, they planted that sapling, they packed the dirt around, and then they left. He's like, "You're playing, North Korea." That tree is still there. Do not call America's bluff. We got nothing better to do than hold a grudge and take offense. I remember reading this once, and it said there was this one forum, people were talking back and forth about the flags on the moon, and they pointed out that the Chinese were going to be landing very close to where the original mission, the original Apollo mission, the original lunar landing had taken place, and one of the European kids said, what would you Americans what would happen if if the Chinese went over there and just knocked the flag over? Oopsie. What would you do? Start up your old space program, send somebody back up there to set a new flag up? And one of the commenters said, "Dude, as an American, I can guarantee that is precisely what would happen." And I'm like, he's right, If we ever found out that somebody had gone up there and knocked over one of our flag, even though it's bleached out from the sun by now, and even though even though we haven't been up there in 60 years, in 50, 60 years, if they knocked that flag over, if we found out they'd knocked that flag over, we would have the rockets ready to go in a week. And we get to America, yeah, playing rock, slamming on a guitar the whole way there. Bat dog? What bat dog? I don't know what bat dog you're talking about here. Oh, him. He's actually the guy that's the persona of the persona of the guy that paid for he paid for the commission. It's a birthday wish for his sister, Allison Barnes. Posted this a couple of days ago. Excuse me, I'm just chewing my candy here. But, look, we're only 200, we're a country that's a little over 200 years old. We're just under 300 years old. There are people out there, we know we got countries out there who've got furniture older than us. But we busted our humps. And in less time than it took, all of Europe to go from wooden castles to stone ones, we went, in 300 years, in less than 300 years, we went from wooden sailing vessels and the musket to supersonic jets and the space shuttle. And you can be as, oh, well, those were German scientists who came. Yeah, German scientists who came to America. That's the thing about America. You come to America to become an American. It's not race, creed, or color. It's our values. That makes us both more fragile and stronger than a mere ethnic boundary or geographic location. Our beliefs. And more than anything, we believe in ourselves as a country. We used to be more open about it, but deep down most Americans believe, that what we have created here on this continent held out promise of freedom, liberty, prosperity to every human being on earth. As one of the founding fathers put it, our cause is just. It is the cause of mankind. So you kick at that. You're not just kicking at our ancestors or our hometown or our location or our race or our geographic proximity. You're kicking at something that the very thing that glues us together are our beliefs. The belief in inalienable human rights, in justice, in being innocent until proven guilty, in freedom, in the right to life, liberty, and security and property, in pursuit of happiness. We don't believe in it just because we live here. We live here because we believe in it. And that goes for the ones born here as well as the ones that flew clear across an ocean or sailed across in a ship or paddled across the Gulf of Mexico in a life raft made out of rubber tires and 2x4s. Next, are you wanting to try and voice chat with me? I'm only vague on how to set that up, actually. You could call on the phone, but it wouldn't be able to broadcast your voice over the channel. I'm really not sure how to set that up. Well, if I figure it out, maybe someday. Actually, that is the dragon from Under the Lemon Tree. It's the same guy. Don't think I'd heard from him in a coon's age. I'm chewing too loud, aren't I? I've got to put this candy out of my reach. People wonder, sitting here wondering, gee, I wonder why all my teeth are falling out. I've lost several teeth. Got a half tooth in a gap in one up front. Got several teeth in the back that fell out too. Actually, they broke out. The tooth cracked and pieces fell off, and then eventually the last piece fell out, and here I am. Well, I've got mouthwash here. I got mouthwash. You know, it's for freshening your breath, but it's not for protecting your teeth, really. Oh, this is nice. This is alcohol-free mouth rinse. Got it from when I was at the hospital. Not for use with patients on mechanical ventilators, patients suffering from cystic fibrosis or weakened immune systems. Yee. Water, sorbitol, sodium benzoate, citric acid. How nice. How special. Fresh mint flavor. Bleh. I used to love mint ice cream when I was a kid. Mint ice cream, mint chocolate chip. That was great. Loved it. And then I suppose I started brushing my teeth more often. Now all mint ice cream tastes to me is like toothpaste. Yeah, talk about sucking. Having all the disappointing sensation of brushing your teeth, even as you're rotting them out of your head with the ice cream. Yeah, people have talked about, why don't you set up a Discord channel? I don't even know what a Discord channel is. Don't know what I would use it for. Don't know what it's, give me a chance to adjust to the fact that I have a Tumblr, okay? I'm new here. I'm old and slow. In every sense of the word. Ugh. Whew. Okay. Well, if I ever figure out Discord, tell me then, okay? Tell me your channels and stuff then. Okay. Okay. Look, it is 3. It is 3. No, it's not 3. It's 10:25. It's close to 10:30 at night here. It's close to 10:30 at night. Do you know where your children are? Not born yet. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Tummy's starting to act up, for one thing. And running back and forth to the bathroom is a real drag when you're on the air. So, okay, I'm going to say goodnight. You all take care of yourself. Thank you for being readers. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sticking with this fat old crazy fool all these years. You all take care of yourselves and have a good night, okay? Bye-bye.